So, welcome everybody to the 11th session of the 12-session long personalized meditation training series. Thanks for being here, thanks for watching, thanks also very much for your donations. They are still needed, I dare say. And I hope to see you all tomorrow also in the live Q&A session at the messenger room. You can find that information on my Facebook page. Please join us, it's great fun, and there I can answer any rising questions on this class or any other subject. And I guess today's class might bring quite a few questions, because the subject of ritual, of getting spiritual help, is really not an easy subject. Not so easy to understand, and maybe most of all not so easy to accept. And to start, I'd like to say that rituals are very helpful, but they are not needed. So if you don't feel like it, then don't do it, don't get involved in it. But if you do feel like it, it's a great way to stimulate your spiritual progress and your progress in meditation, because help is really there to be gotten from the spiritual world, only we have to properly ask for it. So in the West, we tend to explain these rituals, which I think in many yoga studios we also like, to light a candle, to light some incense, to put some flowers, to chant some mantras, that these rituals are seen as part of pratyahara, a way to calm down, to center, to calm our senses with nice sattvic energies like the energy of flowers and bells and all these things. So this is definitely also one of the things that ritual does, but it is so much more, and so that is the subject of today. And I'm quite aware that bringing up this subject is not the way to make my classes very popular, because it brings a lot of disbelief, it brings maybe also fear, uncertainty, to understand that there is something like the spiritual world, and that there are interactions between us and the spiritual world over which we have only limited control. And so we're all born control freaks, so we certainly don't appreciate the idea that something might influence in a good way or a negative way our thoughts and feelings and our lives. So we tend to disregard this subject and push it away. But well, you can push as much as you want. If it is a reality, then it is just there, and you can ignore it or not. It's up to you. So I hope you can listen to this class with a bit of an open mind. Just hear what I have to say, and then afterwards make up your own mind about it. And if you are in doubt, then just try these things and see what they do for you, and I'll give you the best possible answer to this question. So today we really have to a little bit question everybody's perception of reality, or at least most people's perception of reality, which usually is more materialistic rather than truly spiritual. I mean, many spiritual people are there, but they still have quite a materialistic viewpoint. And the essence there is actually whether we regard consciousness, our thoughts, our feelings, as something separate from the physical body, or whether we regard it as something which only comes out of the physical body, like the neuroscientists will say that all our thoughts and feelings are just a result of some neurotransmitters and other electrochemical games in this brain soup that we have, and involving neurons and neural patterns and all these things, which are of course all there, but to limit it to only that is the materialistic point of view. Today, I guess it's the common point of view in the world. And there is the other point of view, which sees consciousness as something separate from the body, as something which exists by itself, and as something which even might be the origin of the body and the origin of our experiences in this world. So this is a question also about the visible reality and the invisible reality. The visible reality, which we can see and also touch and experience through our senses, is what most people will see as the reality. While people who have more of a spiritual nature and who have had more spiritual experiences will understand that behind this visible reality there is also an invisible reality. And of course, modern science now has a lot of equipment with which to a little bit look behind the scene, like with microscopes or telescopes or any other kind of equipment that allows us to see certain energies also, or rays or whatever. But still, we are only looking at the material world with these things. We are only looking at how matter and energy, which is actually the same, no, are organized and are moving and all these things. But that does not allow us to see truly beyond that manifested reality into the unmanifested reality of the spirit. So that is a little bit difficult. We tend, of course, to believe that which we see, that is only natural. But we can also understand that, okay, maybe we are not blind, but we are not seeing everything there is to see. And some things simply are not to be seen, but they still can exist. And we have to accept also that the knowledge that comes from the Vedas, that the knowledge that comes from the rishis, from the seers, from those people who have experienced deep meditation, sometimes for very long times, have been in deep meditation, have come back not just with the story of the self, which is a very interesting, very primary story, very, valuable story, but they have also come with a story about the spiritual world and how that is organized. It's in the same books. You go in the four Vedas, you go in all the later scriptures, Upanishads and so on, and you will find very detailed, accurate descriptions of how the spiritual world is organized. So we can at least a little bit be humble and see what they have to say. So for people who have a more direct experience of the spiritual world, this whole world is really magical. While for people who do not have the experience, this world seems quite simple. But still, this scientific approach is limited. Science has brought us so many wonders of the modern world, but still it is quite limited in what it can do. It can see the whole process, how a seed develops into a tree. It can describe it in accurate detail on a molecular level, electrochemical level, all these things. But still, there has not been a scientist yet who has been able to create a seed. because they don't understand the magic which is behind it and which is very much needed to make all the more materialistic and energetic aspects of that growth into a tree work. So science has this premise that whatever it cannot understand is said to be inexistent. That is, of course, actually a very strange idea, there to protect, of course, from any real nonsense. But it's still a strange idea because every day science is discovering new things, understanding new things. So then from one day to another, these things, from being inexistent, suddenly they become like existent. You know? Like, let's say, the problem that science still has with homeopathy is very similar. In these homeopathic remedies, there are so few molecules left that they can't even detect it. So then science says, how can this work? Nothing is there. How can this help to cure a disease? But still millions of people are using every day homeopathic remedies with good result. So something must be there, only we cannot understand it. But so to discard something because we cannot understand it, because we cannot see it, is pretentious. So this is a little bit what I am asking you today, not to be pretentious, to be humble, and accept, yes, maybe something is there of which I do not have myself the experience, but still might exist. So I might as well try to work with it and see what happens. Then I can have some kind of experience, and only then I can really make up my own mind. So, when we talk in yoga philosophy about Maya, this whole world being like an illusion, this is usually explained as the world being an illusion because it is ever-changing and nothing is permanent like the self is permanent. So this is also true. But naming this world an illusion goes quite a bit beyond that. The truth is that we have this experience of being here in this world, so we feel that is the reality in which we live. But in truth we are not in this world. In truth we are all spirits, we are all souls, and we do not live here. We are living in the spiritual world. And from there we have connections to this body, called nadis, energy channels, through which we are working with this body. It's like, you could say, a video game with remote control. And just like, any virtual reality game, giving you the experience of actually being there in the game. Well, this virtual reality game also gives us the very convincing experience of being here in this body, in this game, but actually we are not. We are in the spiritual world. That is where we vibrate in essence, where we have a energy body, a soul body, with a certain vibration, and where we also interact with other souls, with other spirits, who also have a certain vibration. And to change our vibration is actually the primary method of meditation. So to engage then our spiritual community, you could say, in the process is very advantageous. So then life truly becomes a game, a lila, to be played. And the self, of course, is always our greatest asset in this game. But there are still also other things, energies, balances, harmonies that we can work with to make self-identification more easy. So those who are very fond of Advaita Vedanta, non-dual knowledge, they are right. It's the greatest thing. But there is also Dvaita Vedanta, dual knowledge, coming from the very same source. And that is precisely the knowledge that explains how the world really is organized and how we can work with it. So, you look at the famous jnanis of the past century, Ramana Maharishi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, they were all doing rituals. You can even see that on YouTube. And then some people will say, yeah, well, they were just doing that to please the community, to please their family. I don't believe it. And it's quite clear also from what they have said about it. They also respect these things. They also understand the importance of these things. They also understand why not make it more easy. Only their emphasis is quite clearly on what the self can bring you, and rightfully so, because it's too often neglected. People in India in the past centuries may have been doing far too many rituals and being far too much involved with that part of the game, and not given enough attention to quite simple silence, pure consciousness, and so on. So that is why they don't really teach it. If you see their character, these are people who do not make compromises. They will not just do rituals just to please anybody. Look at their answers. They're not trying to please anybody. They're just very clear and straightforward what they believe is true. And still, Nisargadatta Maharaj did the ritual, quite a long one, every morning. So, we have this difficult inheritance of religion which is deeply imprinted on our system and makes it a little hard to deal with this story. But it is not because something is used in the wrong way that it cannot be used in the right way without leading to all the problems associated with religion. And I also understand it is difficult because this is not something that still exists in our culture. We burned the witches. The Catholic Church in the Middle Ages killed everybody who had some knowledge on this level. So this is very much inexistent now in our culture. And unfortunately this means we also have to a little bit look at other cultures who have been able to preserve this kind of knowledge and try to find out how we can work with these things in our own way, but still respecting the knowledge that is available and applying it in maybe a more universal way to our own practice. So, and then let me describe a little bit more in detail what beings exist in this spiritual world. So the first thing is that we often call these beings energies because they have an energy body. They do not have a physical body like we have. They have a body made out of energy, sometimes more subtle, sometimes less subtle, but in any case much more subtle than our physical body. So in that way, they have an existence which is quite similar in a way to us, and in another way quite different. So it's hard to understand, and of course the first kind of beings that we encounter in the spiritual world are quite simply human souls, people who have departed and are in between lives. Many people who are spiritual, they believe in reincarnation, or at least in some kind of life after death. But then when we ask them, do you believe in spirits? Then they go like, well, I don't know. But one thing cannot be separated from another. If you believe in reincarnation, then you cannot think that going from one body to the next body happens so instantly that there is nothing in between. Some time is there in between, and that means that if you believe in reincarnation, then you believe in spirits. You cannot just pick one of them. So reincarnation is, a very difficult story. I'm not going to go into that now. It'll take us too long. There is a class on YouTube on that subject also. But the main thing is, of course, that we feel, yes, we have no proof of it. Why don't we remember our past lives? But so when we study this question, we easily come to the understanding that life could not really happen if we would remember our past lives. Imagine that in past life you were a woman and in this life you are a man. Or in past life you were a deer and in this life you are a tiger. This wouldn't work. We need to be able to identify with this life, with this body, with this situation, and so we have to forget. And that's what actually happens at birth. Some kind of energy comes which wipes the memory of the baby so that it can start fresh and live the life it's supposed to live. And some people do remember some things and have been able to prove it also. So if that subject is of interest to you, I suggest you start looking. There's a lot of information out there, also from highly reputed universities and scientific institutions, which have been tracking down people who seem to remember things from their past lives and who have been trying to find proof of these memories in things that these people have left behind and could point out, or in other ways that their story seems to be miraculously true. But so anyhow, leave that for the moment. Those are the first type of beings that we can encounter. And that makes actually our ancestors very important to us, because they are through the blood linked with us. So there is a kind of a relationship there. Likewise, we also have other friends from past lives with whom we still have a love connection, and which maybe also have been quite important in our decision to reincarnate in a particular situation, in a particular place, so that we could be with these friends. And sometimes, we encounter people and immediately we don't know them, but we feel we know them. We feel very at ease with them. We easily open our heart to them. So those are then probably the people that, yes, we feel we know them because we know them. And so these can also be quite important for us. But so next to human souls, there are also, of course, animal souls, which are there. And plants also have spirit, although it's organized a little differently. Like you more have one spirit for a plant species. But essentially everything has spirit. A stone has spirit, a mountain has spirit, everything has spirit. The elements have spirit. The element of fire has a spirit. The element of water has a spirit. So these are things that we all encounter in the spiritual world. And among human souls, noteworthy are what could be called ghosts, preta, which are just human souls which have more attachment to their previous life than usual. And in that way their energy bodies are also a little more condensed, and they can also a little more affect the physical world. But before you start worrying about them, they're really very rare. Human souls are numerous in any place, but ghosts are very rare. and so don't think about them. And then important to mention also is that in the spirit world they have not yet evolved toward democracy as we know it. So that there are some more ancient power structures there involving local rulers, Tanapati, Gramapati, involving local warriors who have a kind of policing job, let's say, and which we also might want to respect whenever we are working with the spiritual world. But so apart from the spirits of humans, animals, plants, stones, elements, there are also really beings that are very, let's say, alien to us. You know, they are quite removed from us. We don't have so much interaction with them also. Like the Naga, which are kind of being shown as human with a snake body, which then in Chinese culture becomes more like a dragon. Or we have the Gandharvas and the Apsaras, celestial musicians and dancers who like to party a lot and only very occasionally get involved with us. There are many, many different kinds like that. Generally speaking, we can divide spiritual beings between what is called Devic and Asuric. That is often translated as divine or demonic, but that is really the wrong kind of understanding, because all human beings have partially a divine nature, partially an Asuric nature, which just means that when we are in a more Asuric energy, we are more interested in bhoga, in fun, in enjoyment. We just want to party and enjoy life. And when we are more in a Devic energy, then we say, okay, fun is not bad, that's why we are here, but let's make it a little bit harmonious, let's make it honest, let's, share, and let's connect heaven and earth. Neither be too earthly nor too heavenly. Live life in a good way for everybody. So this is a little bit also there then in the spiritual world. Some beings are more oriented to help others, to support the community or the universe. And some are maybe a little more out for fun and a little more selfish in that way. But that doesn't really make them demonic. And when we talk about getting spiritual help in meditation, then the ones that are mostly interesting to us are the yogis and yoginis who have gone before us. And, first of all, when I say yogi or yogini, I do not mean just people who have been doing some yoga, like the terms are used today. They are masters of yoga. So these yogis and yoginis are there. They are really also karma yogis, which is part of the path anyhow. So in that way, they are there to help us. They usually stay quite a long time in the spiritual world, where they can still evolve, where they can still grow into other dimensions and learn things there, but where they still also maintain some contact with us and like to support us if we sincerely try to meditate and bring ourselves more closer to our divine nature. Another kind to mention are darkas and darkinis, who are mostly associated with the energies of the chakras and who can be seen as gatekeepers of the chakras. where they are protecting certain energy channels so that they are not, I would say, prematurely opened, which can lead to all kinds of imbalances. And so to worship them may also be helpful in letting our consciousness truly move higher up in the energy of the chakras, so that our experience, our point of view also changes. And so there, yes, we can also get some help. Another group, very, very important, are the grahas, the planets. The planets, they are manifestations of the energy that preserves the universe and is associated with the god Vishnu. So they maintain the balance in the world, which partially has to do with, punishing the guilty, but also with so many other things. They make sure that there is leadership where it is needed, that there is feeling where it is needed, art where it is needed, knowledge where it is needed, change where it is needed, play where it is needed, love where it is needed, self-reflection where it is needed, service where it is needed, war where it is needed. So these beings are also quite important to work with, whatever we want to do in life. So because they can affect our karma, they can really also help us to move forward, provided that we also respect them. So, and then we come to the last group of the devatas, which is usually translated as gods, but that is really not what this word means. The many Indian gods, they're actually not God, they are divine energies. They are manifestations of the ultimate cosmic conscious energy, which is formless, but which still will manifest these divine energies, these devata, in creation. And so if you look at the story of creation in Vedic science, the Big Bang, there from that pure, unmanifested cosmic conscious energy, the first thing which comes out is not stars and galaxies and all that, but the first thing which comes out are these devatas, are these divine energies, which each, you can say, manifest an aspect of the unmanifested, pure conscious energy of which the world is made. And in that way, the love which so naturally comes out of the feeling of the self can be symbolized by Krishna. The lightness can be symbolized by Ganesha. The generosity that comes out so much easy from the heart can be symbolized by Lakshmi. The austerity, the detachment, that is so also self-evident, is then associated with Shiva and so on. So you have to understand when I say can be symbolized by, that it does not mean that these energies do not exist. Only the picture that we make of it, the name that we give it, that's our own doing. That's the symbol that we use to make ourselves understand this essential energy or this essential quality of the divine. But these energies still exist as beings, quite different from us, of course, so closely connected to cosmic consciousness that there's hardly any difference, except that they do take on a certain form energy, which is not the form, as I said, that we make of it, that we picture of it, but still some kind of vibration is there, some kind of form is there, some kind of particular energy quality is there. So when we then work with Ganesha, Shiva and so on, like in the beginning of a class I will always do Ganesh mantra, because, well, that's a tradition. So then it's for sure not that at that moment when I do the Ganesha mantra, Ganesha himself will look down from the heaven and say, oh, Peter is starting a ritual, I should support him. That's not how it works. The truth is that within the spiritual world, Ganesha has many devotees, like helpers, like a community, which themselves also feel related to that energy, or feel that this particular manifestation of the divine suits their own nature, and so they want to support it. So it is those beings which are a little bit on a lower level, you can say, than Ganesha itself, but still quite spiritually inclined, that they will then see, oh, Peter is doing this, let's a little bit, support his vibration with that particular Ganesha quality that he is trying to generate. So it is like an interaction of vibrations. You have to see that we are not here. We are souls, we are spirits, we live in the spiritual world. So, and if there we are doing the Ganesha mantra and creating the particular Ganesha energy, other energies that feel related to it will come and join us and add to it. That's actually simply said how it works. I mean, it's so hard to talk about these things because we have to continuously picture it in a way that we can understand. But that's more or less how it then works. And so these communities of helpers, these armies of helpers, are available with all the devta, with all the different variations of the same divine energy. And so depending on what we want, we can try to vibrate on their level, and they will vibrate with us, and in that way they will support us. So right now then, let's have a look at how this spiritual world will influence us and how we can work with that. So the basic thing to understand there is the existence of the common mind field. The common mind field connects us all on the soul level. So this is not a connection on the level of the conscious mind. It is the level of the subconscious mind, where we are very strongly influenced by other beings in the spiritual world, whether they have a physical body or not. Like, for example, now with this corona crisis, especially I would say in the beginning, in the first weeks, this brought a lot of fear amongst people. And this fear could be felt also in ourselves whenever we go out in the supermarket or, somehow meet people. And we come home and then we feel ourselves also more stressed. So this is the influence of the common mind field. This is not also the more raw energy level. I mean, if you can stay a distance of 2 arm lengths from people, then the more raw energy body is not touching. So then there's no transfer of energy there. But on a deeper level, on a more subtle level, on a subconscious level, definitely that is there. So the truth is that we have many connections with other beings, with people we love, with people maybe we hate, and also within the spiritual world with the beings that reside there. Actually, what happens there is that like energy attracts like energy. So if a person feels very happy, then happy energies will join the party, Or if a person feels very afraid, then fearful energies will start attaching to that person and will vibrate along with that person. In that way, stimulate that fearful feeling in that person, and in that way also seek somehow to express their own emotion. Emotion always seeks expression. When we feel loved, then we want to hug and kiss. When we feel joy, then we want to laugh. When we are afraid, then we start shaking. The energy somehow it has to come out. When we are angry, we start shouting, we get hot, we even maybe using our fists, So somehow emotion always seeks expression, and because we are in the physical world, for those spiritual energies, it is interesting to connect to us and vibrate along with us, because then somehow that expression of emotion can happen more strongly, so that they can more easily exhaust it themselves. So definitely, the energies that are there in the spiritual world can affect how we feel, can affect our thoughts, can affect even our actions and whatever is happening around us. We should not underestimate that. This should not create any fear also. This is actually a very natural thing that is there, and we all live with it whether we know it or not. Only when knowing it we can start a little bit to respect it and to work with it, simply to have a better life. For example, as a healer, it is very clear that when a disease is present, it will manifest on 3 levels. It will manifest on the physical level in the body, it will manifest in the thought patterns, emotions, the mental, and it will also manifest in the spiritual. Certainly, if a disease or an imbalance, which all diseases are, exists for a longer period of time, it will establish itself, it has to establish itself on those 3 levels. So then if we are talking about health, then health is not just physical health, it's also not just mental health, but it's also spiritual health. And in that way only, we can truly deal with disease by using 3 different therapies, let's say, that target these 3 different levels. And okay, sometimes you get lucky and just by doing one thing, you tip the balance and the imbalance it goes and the disease goes also on the other levels. But we will be the most sure to be successful if we can work on the physical body, on the thoughts and emotions of the person, and then also on the level of spiritual connections that they have. Because the truth is, for example, if a person has been angry for some time because of, some relationship went wrong, and then after a while this is digested by that person and somehow he can let it go. Then the problem on the spiritual level is that maybe that person will have really difficulty to let it go, even though himself he is already done with it, because those angry energies that he has accumulated during that period, they do not want to let go. They prefer to stay in that anger, and so they also generate it within that person. So especially then, a spiritual approach is needed to remove these energies so that this person can again be himself and decide, okay, now I let go, I forget, I forgive, and I move forward. And now we're just talking about disease, but this is true in every aspect of life. If a musician is a good musician and making great music, then for sure in the spiritual world he will also attract energies that support that kind of energy that will inspire him, motivate him, support him to make great music. So the same is true in everything, in sports. If you are a great cook, for example, if you are a teacher, or if you are a healer, then definitely you will accumulate spiritual energies that will support whatever it is that you are doing. So the same then goes for meditation, and of course it goes for meditation, because in meditation what we are seeking is to connect to our deepest being, to the self, to our soul, and so to go in our awareness to the spiritual world. As I said, we are already there, but our awareness is here. So in meditation we try to bring our awareness away from the physical world, and slowly through the koshas, as I explained, we are moving closer to the self. And so if we have energies who can help us there, who can bring us the right sattvic, peaceful vibration, who can show us the way, as I explained in the different phases of deep meditation. There are areas which are very vague, which are like a fog through which you have to pass. If there you get a helping hand, let's say, that is very handy. And in so many different ways to motivate us, to help us in our concentration, to help us to keep the environment around us clear of other energies, energies that are not very suitable for meditation. In all these ways, spiritual help can be very useful. But the thing is, if we want spiritual help, then we have to ask. Because these karma yogis, they really want to help us. They ask nothing less than to help us. But we have to ask them. Because we are free. We can be nervous or we can be calm. This is our own choice. And that they can only help us with if we ask. It's not something they can just do. That would be bad karma for them. If they interfere in our energy, if they make our energy more sattvic without us asking for it. So this is something that cannot be done. We have to ask, not with 1,000 words, very humbly, very simply, please help me to have good meditation. That is enough. So that is really then Tantra Yoga. Tantra literally means expanding the energy. I mean, Tanu Vistare, from which this word comes, means to expand the energy, and this is usually like explained as giving you more energy, which of course also it can do. But this goes quite a bit beyond more energy. It is really like expanding your energy towards other dimensions, transforming your energy so that it becomes suitable for other dimensions, so that you become more connected to these other dimensions. That is what Tantra Yoga really is about. And last but maybe not least, working with the spiritual world can also bring one certain power, certain siddhis, like in the healing work or any other work. We can also there get help from spiritual energies that allows us to do things which normally cannot be done. Not all siddhis are related to the spiritual world, but many of the siddhis can be explained very easily through the spiritual world, like for example telepathy and many of these other things that seem to occur when people start to meditate real honestly. Now when we think about rituals, we have to understand that some elements are truly universal and can be used by anybody anywhere, and some elements will be really very local, very related to a particular culture. And it is precisely because they relate to certain beings that belong to that culture. Like, for example, I have learned the healing arts from Kedaru Preti from Nepal. So many things that I am doing, the use of specific, let's say, colors or sounds or things like that, is Nepalese. It's got nothing to do with the spirits in Belgium. It's only the Nepalese spirits who can understand what I am trying to do and who will respond to it. So that is very, very local, very, very specific. And then there are also other things which are truly universal, which we will find in every culture, because they relate to a certain science about the spiritual world and about interacting with the spiritual world that is then universal and not anymore dependent on custom, you can say. So rituals are like a language, and in that way some universal elements can be found in that language, and they are also like a science of connecting to the spiritual world. So let's have a look at these more universal aspects. And I would say the first and foremost is sincerity. Rituals should never happen without sincerity, without truly speaking from the heart, without truly being honest in what you are asking, honest in what you are offering, respectful in what you are offering. So this also means, for example, that if at the start of your meditation you are asking for help from the spiritual world, that then, you'd better try to meditate properly and not waste your time, but also the time of those who maybe have heard your request by idly doing some mantra while thinking about what happened yesterday or what will happen tomorrow. I mean, we cannot avoid all thoughts just like that, so it's a process, that is not the issue. But we should be sincere in doing that. And in general, these rituals will not work if they are not heartfelt, because these beings, they look straight into our heart. They know very well our thoughts. They know very well our feelings. So if something is not really there, they will know it. So that is the first thing. The second thing which we find throughout all culture is the use of the 5 elements. By offering the 5 elements, you might say, we also offer the universe, because the universe is nothing but 5 elements. So that is a more general explanation, but there is also a very particular science to it. For example, when we offer the earth element, we give some fruits of the earth, whether they be fruits or flowers or leaves or something from nature. And so that is, let's say, valuable in the spiritual world, because in the spiritual world everything is formless. Yet they have great power of imagination. So if in the spiritual world you want to have a flower, you have to imagine it. So when we offer a flower to the spiritual world, what we are offering actually is a blueprint of that flower. Is almost, you could say, the DNA of that flower. It is in anyhow the means by which those spiritual beings themselves, they can imagine to be surrounded by these flowers, to have many of these flowers and to enjoy these flowers. So that is truly how the earth element helps them. The earth element is the only element with form. Water has no form, fire has no form, etc. So that is the great power of the earth element, the ability to create form, and so that is a great gift that we are then giving. The second then is water. Water is the essence of emotion, the essence of feeling, related also to the rasas. And it is not only that, but it is also a great conductor of energy. So then if we invite some spiritual energy to come into our presence, water is absolutely needed, because there easily they can come and stay there and help us. Like it is possible to bring spiritual energy also in a solid form, but very, very difficult. It requires a lot of work. While with water it is fairly easy. We invite and they come. So that is the power of water, and for that reason also, water preferably is put into a material that is relatively conductive by itself, like copper or gold or silver. That makes it just a little more easy. And this water should really be fresh. So no water from a bottle, but either from nature or tap water. Tap water is like from nature, water which is in movement. And it is through the movement of water that water gets this particular quality, that it is infused with the life force. While water which has been in a bottle standing still for a long time, it is considered dead water. We usually don't make that difference, but if you give two types of water, these two types of water, to a dog, then you'll see the dog will choose the living water and not the dead water. But we have become very evolved, so we don't see those differences anymore. So then the third element is fire. And fire we can bring with the real fire, or with an oil lamp, or with a ghee lamp, or with a candle made of beeswax or coconut oil or something natural material, preferably, much rather than, paraffin, which is petrochemically made. So the fire, it brings power to the whole procedure, let's say. The power to connect from this place to the spiritual world. It is the raw power out of which the nadis, the connections, the energy channels are made. And so that is also an absolute requirement. How else, can the connection be made? And one must also see that flame as a kind of beacon that shows where we are. And in that way you will find in many temples or ashrams, and actually also here just in front of me, a lamp which is never extinguished, which is kept burning 24 hours a day. Mine needs like 2 oil refills to keep burning. And so in that way we have a continuous presence, a continuous beacon that shows where we are, so that the connection and the support can also be more of a continuous nature, and not just when we start to meditate. So if you can keep that flame burning for a longer time, is best. And then the fourth element is the air element, which we influence, one might say, by lighting some incense. Incense actually has both fire and air. But so what comes out, the smoke is belonging to the gases, is belonging to the element of air. And interestingly enough, it is so effective to bring a good, let's say, mood to the ritual, not only for ourselves, but also for those spiritual beings who are interested to help us. Another name for those beings actually is the Vayu. The Vayu means those who live in the air, those who live in the wind. And so when we bring incense smells into the air, we kind of bring some beautiful smell from the earth element, from flowers and leaves and woods into the air element. And there we have a quite, one might say, overwhelming effect on the spiritual beings, who really appreciate very much how their living space is being cleaned and made to smell really nicely through the use of incense. And then last but not least, we also offer some sound for the space element, the element of Akash or ether, which is like a space but not a truly empty space. It still has some matter, but very, very, very subtle matter. I think scientists now call that dark matter, but never mind. So that element is the most subtle of all elements. It is the most close to the original supreme element called Mahatattva, the big element, which is beyond all the elements, which has the seed of all the elements, and which is the divine element, out of which everything is made. So Akash is the most close to that. So if we want to affect the spiritual world, if we have only one thing to offer, I would say, then sound is always the best thing, because it very directly affects the spiritual world. In our world, sound travels through air, no, as air waves, but we also know that in outer space, sound also travels. So that is the unique quality of sound, that it can penetrate, unlike all the other senses, that it can penetrate into the deepest realms of the spiritual world. And it also at the same time allows us to say for whom these offerings are, to say to whom we address our ritual and from whom we are asking help. So that is then by using a particular mantra of that particular energy that we would like to attract. But of course in ritual also other sounds like bells and things are used to create a certain vibration in the Akash that can be useful and powerful to attract spiritual energy. I was talking in the class on mantra, on the power of Sanskrit sounds, how they have a real creative effect. So again, this must be seen as very, very interesting from the point of view of the spiritual world, to have such a power that can create, because it will again allow them to create things in their own world as they want it. And it is so powerful that even one can say it is like a kind of money, it is like a kind of a currency. And that is also why then we come to this idea of counting mantras, of doing 108 mantras like the beads on a mala, or to use other numbers of mantras like 11 mantras, 27, 54. These are quite universal numbers that you find again in all the spiritual traditions whenever certain prayers or mantras are being offered to the spiritual world. To offer it in that way really then creates a kind of a obligation on the other side for a certain amount of help, even though one can of course also do the mantra without any such idea or any such feeling, but even then the obligation will be there. So offering mantra always brings you something in return, and is a very, very strong way, I would say the most essential way to get spiritual help. In that way, we also have to be aware that in whichever culture, whenever rituals are being done, they are focused on that one particular energy that they want to attract. So that is also why I've been saying all along that somehow or other among these different mantras that I have given, you have to choose. You have to choose one, and in order to choose, you can try them out, different ones, but you have to choose, at least for a period of time, what kind of energy you want, so that if you focus on that energy, then it can really also come and help you. If now you are asking this one to help you, and then you're asking that one to help you, and then you're asking again another one to help you, nobody is going to come to help, you know, because you are not patient. So Definitely in terms of universal rules for rituals, repetition is one of the things that you will find, and repetition also means that you choose a particular direction, that you say, okay, I really want that lightness of Ganesha, so let's work with Ganesha. Or I really want to be more detached and abstain from many things, so let's work with Shiva. Or whatever, energy attracts you, and you want to manifest it in yourself, so you ask that energy to please come and manifest in me, help me to manifest this energy myself, and so then it can really work. So it's a kind of relationship that you are creating with that energy. You could call it a love relationship. It's a devotion, it's a heart connection, and that should also be felt in the entire ritual. That when you give a flower, that when you give a water, that really from your heart you are giving it, that really from love you are giving it. And then another part, which is definitely also very universal, is that even while you are focusing your ritual on a particular energy, you are still going to make sure to respect all divine energies, so that the understanding is always clear that even though you want to attract a particular energy, that you are understanding the complementarity of all these divine energies, and so that you respect them also in your ritual. I have added to the resources of the home exercises a very beautiful chant of Harish Johari, which he used to chant in the morning very often, and where he really is chanting so beautifully towards all different deities, Devta, and the planets, and everybody. And so that, is just as an inspiration, that something like that, even though it may be very simple and only taking 10 seconds, should be part of whatever ritual you are doing. And very classical there is, for example, to respect all the directions, the 8 directions of the wind, and then also above and below. Those are things you find in any culture. Also in many cultures you find some kind of mother principle, some kind of father principle. So these also, to respect them is very good, because they are truly universal. And then what comes, maybe not in all cultures, but it's still quite a basic thing, is to respect the essential powers of preservation of the universe, the planetary powers, the grahas, so that, when you are doing a ritual, you are asking for some change in your karma, that you also respect those that are responsible for maintaining karma. I mean, karma is still somewhat flexible, no? So you can ask for a little bit of help, sure, that is not a problem. But at least you have to respect those who are responsible for maintaining karma. Also found in any culture, of course, are rituals for the ancestors, which we have basically forgotten. People die, we bury them or we burn them and we forget about them, or maybe we don't forget about them, but we don't talk to them, we don't really try to keep connected to them, and do not give them anything. We have Halloween, that's all. So when my teacher from Nepal visited the West, one of the first things that he said was that many of the psychological problems that are found in the West are due to the lack of ancestor rituals. Because when the relationship with the ancestors is not good, then these things come. So he advises, for example, at least once every moon, at new moon in the morning, to do a small ritual, just give the 5 elements, just say how are you, I hope I'm not doing anything wrong, please help me in whatever I'm doing. Something like that. And give some water and give some incense and give some fruits and flowers and things which they really will like and really will appreciate. And so this also can be part of your daily ritual. Just saying, okay, ancestors, please help me with my meditation. That's all. You don't have to do anything more. But it's advisable to also engage your ancestors. And then the same can also be done for the lineage, the teaching lineage. So maybe it is for a teacher who has already passed away. Or maybe it is for a teacher who has not passed away, but is simply very far, and you cannot so easily reach him. So then in your ritual you can also address him or her and ask for support. And if that teacher is still alive, normally he will not know that you are doing this, but on the subconscious level, of the level of his soul, it will be known and it will be answered. I have experienced that many times. I can tell you from that experience that this really works. So always love must be there, sincerity must be there, respect must be there, good wishes, are logical to be there. And then your intention must also be there. When you ask help, you have to be clear what you are asking. What do you want? And I'm not going to talk about that so much more when it comes to things outside of meditation, because that's really quite a different subject. But when it comes to meditation, our meditation intention is extremely important and should include a little part that asks for help. Even if for you these things are difficult and you want to stay rather vague, then okay, be vague and just say, whoever can help me with my meditation, please do. So that's the only thing which is really required. If that is coming from the heart, then that is actually already very, very good. And then there is also great value, great spiritual value in the silence of the self. So if you are already able to create that silence inside, to be silent, to be self-aware, then that is also a great thing to offer. And there also you will attract energies which are themselves also silent and which very much enjoy this silent ananda, this blissful feeling. And so if you can also share that, they will also share it with you and thereby strengthen it. And then last but not least, there is what I have said about the direction south. This is again not something purely Vedic. This comes in many, many cultures. South is not the direction we should face whenever we are meditating. It is the direction from which the more unhappy energies will more easily influence us. This is hard to explain, but believe me, it is not advisable, it is not healthy simply to meditate facing south. Any other direction will do. East is more usual, but any direction does except south. So now I have changed the camera angle a little bit to show you some of the more essential ways to do ritual. Things are very simple actually, but to see it being done is always more easy to know what to do. And before we start, it's important that whatever ritual you do, first a little cleaning happens. So, okay, you might take a shower, but that is not always needed. But the minimum needed, I would say, is what they call panchasnanam, the 5 baths. where basically you splash some water on your face, on your hands and your feet. That makes 5 in total. And when you splash water on your face, always also rinse the mouth, so that you are clean and fresh to do this ritual. Likewise, you might even, but it is not needed, a little bit purify the environment, going around with some incense, chanting maybe Gayatri mantra, or using a bell, or something else for purification through sound, or Ganesha mantra, things like that. So these are things to be done before you start. And then when you do ritual, you always need some kind of asana, some kind of sitting place, which in this case now is a small silver plate, but it could be just anything. But the plate makes it more easy to clean up afterwards. Once you start spraying with water and so on, it's quite handy. So I'm now going to do a simple ritual, and I've also created an audio file with the mantras that I am going to use. But you have to understand that this is all very optional. Many of the spiritual beings that I have talked about now before, they will be integrated in this little ritual, but so it is not necessary to follow this. You can make your own way, even use your own words. As I said, it must be heartfelt, that is the main thing. So if you want to address all the directions, for example, so that you're sure to cover the whole universe, then you can do this also in your own language. This is not a problem. As the meaning will be clear from your heart and your being, then the meaning will also be clear to the spiritual world. But if you like to use these mantras, then okay, you have the added value of the Sanskrit sounds and the effects that they have on your being and also in the spiritual world. So, as I explained, the fire is the beacon which shows where you are, so that always comes first. It is an oil lamp made with sunflower oil, which is quite good to burn because it doesn't give much of a smell. When you start using oil lamps in the beginning, you're going to have to learn a little bit how to deal with it, but once you get to know it, it's actually very simple, very cheap also compared to candles, especially if you want to keep them burning 24 hours a day. So then we say, Om Dip Narai Namaha. Dip means lamp. So then we are honoring also the lamp. Whenever we say Namaha, we say, I honor your name. So this is something very essential. And then we bring the water so that the energies have a place to stay. I use here one of these copper pots called kalasas, which you can easily find in any kind of Indian shop. They are quite common there. Gold and silver, of course, they are much more expensive and much more difficult to find. But here for just a few euros you have a nice copper pot where you can then put the water. It's in a bottle, but the water comes directly from the tap. And then we say Om Jal Devaya Namaha. Jal is water. Right? So that is the second thing. Then we offer some incense also, and it is usual to at least give 2 incense sticks. Well, basically because one is like you're being quite greedy and only wanting to give 1. So you give 2 or you give more, it's up to you. So we can light it on the lamp or we can light it separately. Both are possible. And then we offer the incense. Now, incense can also be very much used, for example, to honor all the directions. So I'm going to take them up again. And I'm going to say Om Purvaya Namaha, Om Pashimaya Namaha, Om Uttarai Namaha, Om Dashinai Namaha, Om Agnyai Namaha, Om Nairabhyai Namaha, Om Vaibhyai Namaha, Om Visnai Namaha. So these were the 8 directions. Then I still have to honor whoever is here. Om Madhyaya Namaha. Madhya means here. And then I offer everything which is above in, let's say, the heavens. Om Akash Devaya Namaha. And we have to honor also whoever is below, which is not in the hell, but in like an underworld. Om Patal Devaya Namaha. And then I can put the incense back. So, and then we offer the flower. Om Burasitrashibhupataya Namaha. Now I'm using the mantra of the earth to offer the flower. And then for whatever other energies we want to honor or attract, we can easily use also again a little branch and some, this is rosemary, also giving a nice smell to the water, a little branch which we dip in water, and that way we can spray it over the flower whenever we are honoring somebody. So I'm now going to go through a number of energies which are part of my usual ritual that I have learned from Kedaru Preti. So they are Nepalese. I mean, you don't have to do this. I'm a little bit crazy anyway, as a Belgian guy, to be involved with this. But anyhow, it's my problem. So, but just as an example, no? Om Ishtadevaya Namaha. Ishtadev, we talked about it, the personal form of the divine. Om Kuldevaya Namaha. The Kul, this is the lineage, the cultural lineage of the teacher. Om Gurudevaya Namaha. This is then of course for the teacher, for the Guru. Om Tanaptaikramapati Devaya Namaha. This is for those local rulers of the area in the spirit world. Om Kshatrapal Devaya Namaha. This is for the warriors of this same area, the police force you could say, or the military. Om Pitra Devaya Swadha. And so here I'm addressing the ancestors and I'm using the word Swadha, which means to offer, but which means to offer in a very respectful form, because normally for offering we use Swaha. So that'll come later. So here for the ancestors I use Swadha. And then I'm used to also doing all the 9 planets. Om Grim Suryaya Namaha, Om Som Samaya Namaha, Om Angarakai Namaha, Om Bung Budaya Namaha, Om Brim Brihaspatai Namaha, Om Sum Sukrai Namaha, Om Sam Sanaiskrai Namaha, Om Rangrav Namaha, Om Kankatai Namaha. I could even do the female planets, but okay. I didn't put that in the audio file, so I'll not do it now. And then of course we want to honor Ganesha, Om Ganganaptai Namaha. And then since Gayatri is very important for me, I also use Gayatri mantra, Om Swaha. So here you see I offer the word Swaha. And we should not forget Shiva, Om Namah Shivaya, Swaha. And then Bhairav, important to keep the anger under control, Om Bhairavaya Devaya, Swaha. And then, for example, if I'm going to meditate really on Kali, using a Kali mantra, and that is the main energy I want to attract, then here I want to a little bit do more than just one thing. And for example, 11 times I'm going to say Om Kali Divyaya Swaha, 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 Om Kali Divyaya Swaha. So you see I'm using my hand with the different bones that are there in my fingers. There are 12, so then easy I can count to 11. So, and then maybe we can put some ash from the incense also on our forehead. I usually take it here from the fire. This is also very good. And then we express our intention, and then we can start our meditation. So, very basic thing I'm trying to teach here for whomever is willing to give it a try. And if you give it a try, then maybe some experience comes, and then you'll know more by yourself. So, one last thing to say is that then at some point you have to clean this up. Don't put it in the trash, please, or these energies may still be somehow attached to these things. Put it back in nature, and water, don't pour it down the drain, but also put it in nature, so that it can there again be taken. And there also you can use the mantra Om Burasiddhitras Pupataye Swaha to return it to Mother Nature. Before talking about the exercises for this week, I also like to say that a very important kind of ritual is, of course, a fire ritual called Havan or Homa or Agnihotri. Many names are known. But I'll talk about that in next class on sadhana, because it's really kind of a ritual that is used to cement your sadhana, to establish your sadhana much more strongly and get more help also in that respect. So we'll talk about that next week. For this week's exercises, same as last week, decide for yourself now and try to stick also to what you have decided last week, unless you feel uncomfortable about it or something and want to try something else. But so for relaxation, for concentration, for meditation, make up your own mind now and just do this. And maybe once this week you can also try to expand your ritual a little bit, see whatever I've been offering there and what you feel connected to and what you could use in your own way in terms of ritual acts and mantras or things that you want to say or give as you wish. So that way you also a little bit develop this part of the story. Anyhow, thanks for being there. Thanks for the donations. Thanks also for sharing this series. This is also very important that we can a little bit let it grow. The number of people following this and supporting this. So thanks anyhow, and hope to see you tomorrow at the satsang, the Q&A session on the Facebook Messenger room. You can find information on my Facebook page. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Ram Ram.